Adam practice number 16 here for the Buffaloes, and this was offensive line day. It was really offensive line coach day because we got not only the three-headed monster, but we got Grant as well, who's been helping out with them. So we heard from 4 different offensive line coaches as well as Xavier Hill. So a lot of information about the offensive line today.
Yeah, no question. We've heard it referred to as the three-headed coaching monster in that O-line group, but I think the 4Gs is kind of the prevailing nickname for that crew now because Grant, it sounds like he's done such a great job helping out with that group, really taking over the role that Gunnar White initially had under Coach Prime. And so there seems to be a real good chemistry between those guys, and you need that when you're playing O-line because some days it's a thankless job, right? Yeah. You gotta have that camaraderie with each other, and that's another thing we've heard with this whole team is that they've bonded better than last year's team did, and specifically we heard that again today with the O-line.
Yeah, and with that group, I mean, it would seem maybe natural that one of those guys would be the tackles, one of the guards, one of the centers, whatever. But they talked about it's really just interchangeable and. Whoever does whatever, and even Grant will jump in there and run a drill. So it sounds like there's a really good, like you mentioned, chemistry among those guys, and that they really are sharing the load here and, kind of helping each other out with all different areas.
I think it probably sets a good message, too, when those 3 guys, not including Grant because he's obviously coming up in his coaching career right now, but 3 guys that have accomplished quite a bit, whether it's in their coaching career or with George Hageman and with Jerode, the NFL and having a lot of accolades as players. They check their egos, every day to be part of a group that's a true coaching team. Yeah. And so now you look at it and you've got this competition that's going about 8 or 9 deep right now. It kind of sets a tone that it really is about the team. And I think they're going to find a way, and sometimes injuries kind of have a way of working it out itself out, but I do think you're going to see 8 or 9 guys play on that O-line this year.
Yeah, and it does seem in watching a lot of the well-off videos that there's been a 5 that's been kind of the 5 most of camp. Other than last week, Zy Chrysler has been out and Kareem Harden's in there, but Grant or sorry, who's the first coach we talked to?
Gunnar White.
Yeah, Gunnar White. Sorry. I was getting the G's all mixed up. Gunnar White said, hey, look, we may not have that starting 5 until we get to game night. And so it seems pretty clear, but there is that competition. And one of those is at center, where Cooper Lovelace is really pushing Zarian McGill for that starting job there. Cooper's kind of a newer center, but he's got experience. And so he's in there pushing for that job as well.
Yeah, that is interesting. And you've got Yaya Atia that is finally back in the mix now as well. Yeah. So we'll see if he kind of pushes a little bit for the backup role. But he's going to be kind of a little bit behind the 8 ball, just missing a lot of practices earlier this preseason. And Kareem Harden, he was praised quite a bit by those 3 coaches today. Yep. And I forget, was it Hageman that said that he's really kind of transformed his body in the last year and was somebody that kind of quietly played well at times last year. Both he and Philip Houston were starting to come on. Unfortunately, with Houston, he still hasn't been able to get back in the mix. But you really like that you've got 3 guards you feel even right now good about. And I'm sure when some guys get healthy, that list will grow.
Yeah, and Hageman called him a Swiss Army knife. Andre Garode called him a jack of all trades. So we've seen Harden play a little bit of tackle as well. So he'll be able to do some different things. And the other guy that was asked about was Larry Johnson. And George Hageman is a really, really big guy. And and he said with Larry Johnson, he goes, he's a really big guy. And he goes, when I walk behind Larry Johnson, know what it's like for people that are walking behind me. Larry Johnson's a big dude, and he looks like he's having a good camp.
I think George Hageman's definitely top 5 biggest human beings I've interacted with in person.
Yeah.
And I'd have to really sit down and think about it. I can't say number 1 because I'd really have to rack my brain. But yeah, that's saying something when George Hageman's commenting on how somebody else is making him feel small.
Right.
We heard Larry Johnson was very proactive, getting with Jordan Seaton, getting with Zy Chrysler, going to train with NFL folks this past offseason and started to kind of build that chemistry and took a lot of the leadership from those 2 guys who Chrysler and Jordan Seaton are the top leaders. So he picked a couple good guys to glom onto this summer, and it seems to be really working out for him well. Yeah. I think after spring ball, right guard was probably the most wide open position on this team, but it really hasn't been. I mean, it's been a competition, but it's been pretty consistently Larry Johnson with that first group at right tackle all throughout the preseason.
Yeah. The one player we talked today was Xavier Hill. You and I both talked to him media today and recently wrote stories about him, but just a mature guy, and clearly he's been around. He was at LSU for a couple of years. He was at I think it was 3 years at LSU and a couple of years at Memphis where he was a starter and all-conference player. He's played almost everywhere on the line except for center. He's kind of locked in at that left guard spot right now, but just seems like he's going to be a rock for this offensive line, I think.
And he said at Media Day to me and mentioned again today that he really kind of views his best ability as his ability to pull and be a run blocker. And so that's going to be a really nice addition to have. And he's a big guy too. I mean, this offensive line, I said it last week, I feel very confidently this is the biggest offensive line I've ever covered here at Colorado.
Yeah. Well, for a number of years, when we're covering this team for Coach McIntyre, they kind of had that plan of we're going to get smaller guys and make them big when they get here. This coaching staff is kind of let's get huge guys, maybe tear them down a little bit and then build them up, or let's just get huge transfers that are already ready to go.
And part of that was that the recruiting under Mike McIntyre was more of those 3-star under the radar types. Coach Prime is not enamored by stars, but he has the ability to get better players, obviously. And I think, I would rather go the way they're going right now. You bring in a Chauncey Gooden and he loses some of the bad weight rather than – it just took too long for those guys to develop otherwise when you were bringing them in at 260. And some of them you can project based on a frame how big they're going to be in a couple of years, but it's not an exact science. And so some of those guys, remember Kronsage, we thought he was going to be really good. He just could never really put on weight. And so some of those guys, it became a real struggle. So I like the strategy that they have in terms of getting big bodies and having them get Swayze now, I guess, is the term.
That is the term. And we got more coming up this week. We're going to have receivers later on this week, as well as I think we're going to do some defense later on Thursday. So Adam and I will be back tomorrow.